Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good tomorrow, or whatever time it is, wherever you are right now. My name is John Pershing Smith, and I'll be your host today. Our story today is simply called The Soldier and the Seagulls. It happened every Friday evening, almost without fail. The sun resembled a giant orange and was starting to dip into the blue ocean. Old Ed came strolling along the beach to his favorite pier. Clutched in his bony hand was a bucket of shrimp. Ed would walk out to the end of the pier, where it seems he almost has the world to himself. The glow of the sun is a golden bronze now. Before long, however, he's no longer alone. Up in the sky, 1,000 white dots came screeching and squawking, winging their way towards that lanky frame standing there on the end of the pier. Before long, dozens of seagulls have enveloped him, their wings fluttering and flapping wildly. Ed stands there tossing shrimp to the hungry birds. As he does, if you listen closely, you can hear him say with a smile, "Thank you. Thank you so very much." In a few short minutes, the bucket is empty, but Ed doesn't leave. He stands there lost in thought, as though transformed to another place and time. Old folks do strange things, at least in the eyes of the boomers and the busters. Most of them would probably write old Ed off down there in Florida. That's too bad. They'd do well to get to know him better. Why, they would say, would he be feeding seagulls and telling them thank you? Well, let's discuss that. His full name was Eddie Rickenbacher. He was a famous hero in World War I, and then he was in World War II. On one of his flying missions across the Pacific, he and his 7-member crew went down. Miraculously, all the men survived, crawled out of their plane, and climbed into a life raft. Captain Rickenbacher and his crew floated for days on the rough waters of the Pacific. They fought the sun, they fought sharks, most of all, they fought hunger and thirst. By the 8th day, their rations ran out. No food, no water. They were hundreds of miles from land, and no one knew where they were or even if they were alive. Every day across America, millions wondered and prayed that Eddie Rickenbacher might somehow be found alive. The men adrift needed a miracle. That afternoon, they had a simple devotional service and prayed for a miracle. They tried to nap. Eddie leaned back and pulled his military cap over his nose. Time dragged on. All he could hear was the slap of the waves against the raft. Suddenly, Eddie felt something land on the top of his cap. It was a seagull. Old Ed would later describe how he sat perfectly still, planning his next move. With a flash of his hand and a squawk from the gull, he managed to grab it and wring its neck. He tore the feathers off, and he and his starving crew made a meal of it. A very slight meal for 8 men. But then they used the intestines for bait. With it, they caught fish, which gave them food and more bait, and the cycle continued. With that simple survival technique, they were able to endure the rigors of the sea until they were found and rescued after 24 days at sea. Eddie Rickenbacher lived many years beyond that ordeal, but he never forgot the sacrifice of that first life-saving seagull, and he never stopped saying thank you. That's why almost every Friday night he would walk to the end of the pier with a bucket full of shrimp and a heart full of gratitude. Reference this now to Max Lucado in The Eye of the Storm, pages 221, 225, and 226. P.S. Eddie Rickenbacher was the founder of Eastern Airlines, and before World War I, he was a race car driver. In World War I, he was a pilot and became America's first ace. In World War II, he was an instructor and military advisor, and he flew missions with the combat pilots. Eddie Rickenbacher is a true American hero. He was born October 8, 1890, died July 23, 1973, was an American fighter ace in World War II and World War I, and Medal of Honor recipient. With 26 aerial victories, he was America's most successful fighter ace in the war. He was also considered to have received the most awards of valor by any American during the war. He was also a race car driver, an automotive designer, a government consultant in military matters, and a pilot and pioneer in air transportation, particularly as the longtime head of Eastern Airlines. And now you know another story about the trials and sacrifices that brave men have endured for your freedom. In what was to become one of the defining characteristics of Rickenbacher's life, he nearly died many times in events ranging from an early run-in with a horse-drawn carriage to a botched tonsillectomy to airplane crashes. According to Rickenbacher's autobiography, at age 13, his schooling ended in grade 7 after the accidental death of his father in 1904. Rickenbacher found jobs to help support the family, but driven by an intense admiration for machines, Eddie taught himself as much as he could, including enrolling in correspondence courses in engineering. He aggressively pursued any chance of involvement with automobiles. Rickenbacher went to work at the Columbus Buggy Company, eventually becoming a salesman, working in both Dallas, Texas, and Tucson, Arizona. He became well known as a race car driver, competing in the Indianapolis 500 4 times before World War I, and earned the nickname Fast Eddie. Rickenbacher joined the Maxwell race team in 1915 after leaving Peugeot. After the Maxwell team, he wanted to join the Allied troops in World War I, but the U.S. had not yet entered the war. He had several chance encounters with aviators, including a fortuitous incident in which he repaired a stranded aircraft for Townsend Dodd, a man who later became General John J. Blackjack Pershing's aviation officer and an important contact in Rickenbacher's attempt to join air combat. The military awarded him a place in one of America's air combat units, the 94th Aero Squadron. Originally, he flew the Newport 28. April 29, 1918, Rickenbacher shot down his first plane. On May the 28th, he claimed his fifth to become an ace. He was then awarded the French Croix de Guerre that month for his live victories. On May the 30th, he scored his sixth victory. He shot down a German's new fighter, the D-7, on September the 14th, and another the next day. September the 14th, 1918, now a captain, he was named commander of the squadron. And on the following day, he claimed 2 more German planes, for which he was belatedly awarded the Medal of Honor in 1931 by President Herbert Hoover. 13 more wins brought his total to 13 D-7s, 4 other German fighters, 5 highly defended observation balloons, and 4 of the easier 2-seated reconnaissance planes. But now we know why. Why old Ed was down by the docks every day feeding those seagulls. It was the only way he could thank them for the sacrifice of one of their own, to save the sailors on that bad, fateful, gloomy day. That military hero and successful businessman never forgot to give thanks. Even though the seagull was but a small part of his life, the seagull, in fact, actually saved old Ed, helping him to live while accomplishing all of the incredible feats he accomplished. Ladies and gentlemen, as you become successful in your life, your business, your marriage, never forget the small things, the supporting people, your spouse, your children, for what they gave to help you reach whatever level of success you achieve. Writer C.K. Webb said it best, it's a long journey, not just as a writer, but as a human being. Take nothing and no one for granted. Be humble always. Be kind, especially when it's difficult. And never forget the place where you came from and the people that helped you get where you are. These things will live on in you and through you long after the words have faded. I hope you enjoyed today's teaching story, and I thank you for letting me share with you. And as the great Paul Harvey would say, now you have the rest of the story. Thanks for joining us. I look forward to seeing you all in the winner's circle. God bless, and make it a great rest of the day. Goodbye for now.